Mormons are everywhere. They are in your phones, they are on your screens, and they are globetrotting the world collecting souls. But more specifically, Mormon women are everywhere. At first, they were just wives and mothers, and then they became vloggers, and then TikTok dancers, and now they even dominate your TV screen. Forget the Amish. Now, pop culture feeds on Mormons. But why are we so collectively obsessed? It's not surprising that Mormonism fits seamlessly into most social media feeds. After all, it's American-made and outwardly wholesome. It feels familiar, just close enough to regular old Christianity to make it easy for the general public to swallow. Mormons, they're just like us. But not exactly, because beneath the perfect smiling facade of the church lies a culture built on purity and perfection. Mormonism is a performance, but an impossible one. The expectations placed on members are extreme and hard to live up to. Most fail, and that's why we can't look away. We crave the cracks in the shining Mormon glaze. Reality TV exploits our voyeuristic desires by packaging this collapse into bite-sized episodes. And if you're like me, you devour them. We love nothing more than watching someone fall apart. But this obsession reveals something deeper. It's not just about watching the polished Mormon image deteriorate. It's about seeing what happens when Mormon women try to reconcile who they were told to be with who they're becoming. In Mormonism, perfection can and should be achieved. Think about the artfully altered face of a young Mormon mom, framed with heavy-handed extensions. She matches the exact, bland, but beautiful aesthetic that is trending right now, as if she is signaling her spiritual piety with her looks alone. But perfection in Mormonism goes beyond looks. It's behavioral. A woman's worth is tied to sexual purity, obedience, and motherhood. She's expected to be a divine nurturer, raising perfect Mormon families with a smile. Even her consumption is regulated. No alcohol, no drugs, and no coffee. Purity, inside and out. These church expectations shape the values and the life choices of the women we see on screen. The emphasis on sexual purity has a generational ripple effect, often leading women to marry and have children much earlier than the norm. We see this play out directly on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, which features women in their 20s to early 30s. In most shows with this age group, like Vanderpump Rules or Summer House, the storylines center around dating and partying and work drama. But instead, Secret Lives gives us something else entirely, a real Housewives-style spectacle, just with much younger women and much less alcohol. But that youth brings a different energy to the screen. These women may be married with children, but the emotional landscape of Secret Lives often feels more like a middle school cafeteria than a mommy meetup. The drama is immature in nature, focused on jealousies and gossip, with an ever-present current of sexual anxieties. Who's cheating? Who's gay? Who's swinging? Who did what with their husband? And don't even get me started on the season 1 Chippendales fiasco. The topic of sex is treated with a mix of scandal and discomfort, and the result is a show where the tools for conflict feel underdeveloped. But this underdevelopment is part of the appeal. These women were raised to perform perfection, not process real conflict. When they are faced with adult problems, their responses aren't just immature, they're revealing. We're watching women find out how to exist in a system where the rules are meant to keep them smaller and quieter. And now they're struggling to find a voice in a sea of impossible expectations. It's messy, it's clumsy, it's painful, and it's exactly what makes Secret Lives so addicting to watch. On Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, we get to see this struggle for personal autonomy play out in a slightly more evolved, but far more chaotic way. The women are older, further along in life, but often they can look like their secret life counterparts, just louder, richer, and far more unhinged. We also begin to see Mormon identity fractured and repurposed, like Lisa Barlow, a convert who was raised secular and now practices what she calls Mormonism 2.0. With Lisa, Mormonism is less about obedience and more about curation. She picks and chooses which expectations to follow. While she leans into the church's family values and wholesome public image, she also owns numerous alcohol brands and openly drinks on camera. In fact, very little of how Lisa presents herself fits the typical Mormon mold. This creates tension between her and the women in the cast who were raised Mormon. These women lack the same ease in navigating the church's expectations that Lisa has. Instead of a buffet of choices, they must operate in a complex system of rules instilled in them since birth. For Lisa, the rules are open for interpretation, simply suggested guidelines. But for lifelong members like Heather Gay and Whitney Rose, the rules are rigid, moral absolutes. Their choice isn't between belief and flexibility, it's between submission and shame. And that's what makes the unraveling so compelling. It isn't just dramatic, it's deeply personal. Heather Gay may have left the church in 2019, but that doesn't mean that Mormonism isn't a defining factor in her life. Her faith is so interwoven in her being that regardless of her current relationship with the church, it shapes almost every facet of her life. Like how she describes herself as a bad Mormon. This reflects the paradox she finds herself in, still identifying within the framework of Mormonism, even as she critiques or disobeys it. Calling herself bad implies that there's still a standard she believes in, or at least feels connected to. The label is both defiant and burdened. She's rejecting the church authority while still using its language to describe herself. Most of her storylines on the show depict her struggling to move on from certain aspects of the church, both wanting the comfort of something familiar and once holy, and to be released from the isolating shame that has been forced upon those who dare to leave. Mormonism rejected her, but also created her. Heather's story reveals just how difficult it is to separate from something that shaped you so completely. Even in rebellion, she's still performing the role that Mormonism taught her to play. For Whitney Rose, this rebellion looks different. Her struggle is more about healing from trauma and reclaiming the narrative of her life than negotiating the aspects of her identity. While Heather's story may feel stuck in the guilt and the shame, Whitney is actively trying to unlearn this shame and rebuild her life. This healing journey becomes a new identity for Whitney, something completely removed from the church. But healing isn't just her identity. It also infiltrates her career and dominates her storylines on the show. She is always rebranding or building a new company, typically with some sort of healing slant to the products. We often see her trying a new therapy or discussing her journey with the other women. In many ways, Whitney's healing shtick is a public, ongoing performance of reinvention. Her emotional branding may be authentic, but it's also repetitive and highly marketable. Her trauma becomes content, her growth becomes storyline. Whether they're redefining what it means to be Mormon, collapsing under the weight of expectation, or rebranding that collapses growth, the women of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City show us what it looks like to live on the edge of a belief system. Reality TV thrives on collapse, reinvention, and contradiction. But when this cycle is rooted in Mormon performance, it becomes uniquely addictive because it's not just dramatic, it's transgressive. These women do not have to invent tension. It already exists inherently in their lives. The Mormon experience of facing impossible expectations and then inevitably failing is one primed for TV. How they choose to respond to this failure through guilt, rebellion, or reinvention can be even more compelling. But whether we're drawn to Mormons because they remind us of our own journeys or they satisfy some voyeuristic itch, it's clear that Mormons make great content. And I, for one, will continue to watch religiously.